Welcome everyone. Today we will learn the concepts of scope, hoisting, and strict mode in JavaScript. So open a JavaScript compiler and let's declare a function and a variable in this JavaScript file. The function will print via console a string value and declare a variable with a string value and then call the function and console the value of our variable. This is the normal flow. This is exactly what we expected when running the JavaScript code. Okay, so let's modify the flow and move the two final lines at the top of the JavaScript file. You would expect that the JavaScript execution code will throw an error because we're calling a function that is not declared yet, in the same way for the variable that is not initialized yet in the execution code. So let's run the application. As you see, it actually ran the function, and instead of throwing an error by not declaring the variable yet, it displays undefined. That phenomenon is called hoisting. Variables and functions are available even though they are written later in the code. In other words, variables and functions in JavaScript are stored in memory. They are hoisted. But why is the function executed even though it is written later in the code? Because any function that is declared anywhere in the JavaScript code can be executed somewhere in the JavaScript execution code. It doesn't matter if we call the function before or after the declaration of the function, it will execute the function because it is stored entirely in memory. But for variable it's a little bit different because variables are initially set to undefined if not declared yet. So that's why we're displaying undefined, because it's not initialized yet. We can avoid this with situation by using two keywords to declare variables. Newer JavaScript versions introduce let and const keywords to declare variables. So if we change var by let and run the code, it will throw an exception. These two keywords forces us to declare a variable before initialization. So let's move this line at the top and execute the JavaScript code. It runs successfully. We can test with the const keyword and move it to the final. So it will throw an error because we cannot access this variable before initialization. We can even remove the constant let or var keywords to declare a variable. We can call a variable value without declaring them. So let's run the code and it works. This is not what we expected in our code. So JavaScript has added a feature which is a string called useString that forces us to declare any variable in the execution code. So we add this useString string at the top of the JavaScript file to force the declaration of any variable. Run the code and it will throw an error. So we need to define the variable with useString in order to execute the JavaScript code successfully. We're telling JavaScript that we are in strict mode. JavaScript has three scopes: the global scope, the function scope, and the block scope. A scope is an area in which we access our code. So this greeting variable is declared in the global scope, meaning that it can be accessed anywhere in the JavaScript code. If we move this variable into the function, we're in a function scope. Let's run the application and it will throw an error because we're in the function scope. It cannot be accessed outside, in this case in a global scope. So move this console.log inside of the function, remove this line, execute the code. We are in the function scope. Let's declare a new variable in the global scope and log this value into the function. And as you can see, we have an error because we're declaring a variable after initialization So we need to move this line when we're calling the function after the declaration of the global variable and execute the code. It runs successfully. So this variable can be accessed anywhere in the global scope, in the function scope, or in the block scope. Let's create a block scope into the function scope. A block scope can be created by using any statement such as if else, switch, for each. So add an if statement and declare a variable with the same name as the variable defined in the function scope, but with a different string value, and lock this block scope variable. Move this line at the final of the function to see the code execution. So run the application, and as you can see, we're executing different scopes. Basically, when the block scope is executed, it creates the variable greeting, it prints, it outputs to the console, and then the variable is gone. The execution of the block scope is finished, and then we return back to the function scope, which we have a variable with the same name, but with a different value. We're printing a different value in this function scope. Let's move this line from the global scope at the final of the JavaScript file and test again. You can see the three scopes in action. First one is the block scope. The variable is gone when the block scope execution is finished. Then we continue with the function scope by printing the variable defined in the function scope, and finally we print the value defined in the global scope, which can be accessed anywhere. So in this demo, we blend the concepts of scope, hoisting, and strict mode in JavaScript.